welcome to another episode of Wednesday Night Undressed. I am Lewis, your host, and I am joined this evening by Fernando, Marshal, Cassidy,
Hi.
Julian, Evo, Lauran, and Nate. How's everybody doing?
Doing good, man.
Great.
I'm doing all right.
Good deal. All right, so let's just find out for sure. Is there anyone at the table that did not see the eclipse? Julian, did you really not see the eclipse?
No. I'm be honest, I didn't know what time it was, and
Same.
and somebody was like, it happens right now, and I looked outside and I saw no change at all, so I was like, yeah, it's happening one more time.
Wow.
And also, I know if I went outside, Mom was gonna be like, the eclipse's energy is bad, you need to stay inside. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just stay in.
Gotcha. Well, you got to avoid that negative energy.
That's what she was saying the whole day. She was like, the eclipse's energy is like so freaky deaky, I don't want to be outside.
Wow.
Yeah, that's actually the precise
never hears you
scientific
talking about
explanation.
I'll tell her straight to her face.
Tricky-Dicky, right? That's, Neil deGrasse Tyson patented this
I'm
description of the solar
I'm not
eclipse.
shaming her. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. She was like, she thought the eclipse energy was off-putting.
Yeah.
So
Bad
I absorbed a ton of bad energy.
mojo.
Because I was outside essentially from about 12:30, we started going outside to see what we could see. And after about 1 o'clock, we were outside for the entire rest of the eclipse. So, was it you, Nate, that was saying that you were watching it through the trees?
No.
Oh, okay,
no.
gotcha. So you didn't see it at all either, right?
I didn't, and the reason is ADHD and getting a text message 10 minutes before it started, running to the basement to grab something, and then getting stuck at a time loss.
Right.
At 2:30, I went, oh shit, and
I
catch
understand.
the next
I
one.
feel you. All right, Evo, did you watch?
Yeah, man. So, big story. We actually rented an Airbnb in St. Louis, and your neck of the woods. I've been to St. Louis 50 times. I thought I know every street. I've never been to the French Quarter.
Really?
Never been to the French Quarter. It's right by the brewery,
Uh-huh.
and it's freaking beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Which brewery?
The Anheuser-Busch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that area is amazing.
I felt like it was like just an industrial area, lots of brick homes, red brick homes, and we rented a small Airbnb there, traveled with Jamie and Neil, and we decided to go and sleep there because the totality was available about an hour south of there in Cape Girardeau.
Right.
And so we hit I-55 in the morning, and we're there in less than an hour because it's about 87 miles away, and I drove fast. And there was no traffic. It was perfect. Straight shot 55. We ended up going to a small town before Cape Girardeau because the totality was going to be even more spectacular there. Ended up this giant park on the top of a plateau, just a perfect setting. We had a tent, chairs. Place was right by the best gas station I've ever seen. It had every imaginable liquor for sale at the gas station. Freaking Missouri laws, very progressive, shockingly, about alcohol anyway. But and they had good food, and we got a bunch of stuff, and sat there for 3 hours, waited for the event to happen. We've experienced totality before in Atchison, Kansas in 2017. So the weather, if you remember, Lou, was horrible that day. It rained, it was cloudy, and it was not the greatest. But this time, it was out of this world, and it was spiritual experience for me because I'm agnostic, so this is as spiritual as it gets for me. So watching the sun getting consumed, basically appearing as a black hole in the sky, was absolutely incredible. Jamie found on Spotify a solar eclipse playlist.
Oh, nice.
Here Comes the Sun, Black Hole Sun, Total Eclipse of the Heart, You Are My Sunshine, bad moon rising, and so on and so on and so on. We can go on forever. When the moon hits the sky like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
That's amore.
And so it was absolutely cloudless. There were maybe a 1,000 people there.
Wow.
And there were a few people that I wish weren't there. They were a little obnoxious. When the thing happened, it was absolutely incredible. And it is important to know that the total eclipse, is vastly different from 90% or 80%. 80, 90%, whatever, you might not even notice a difference. But the total eclipse, it became dark, like nighttime. The birds, the animals around us started behaving nocturnally, got active, and then everything, the colors became very muted and different, and then the sun itself was incredible. And we were incredibly lucky because we also observed a mass ejection from the corona. Corona with mass ejection, which was a red dot that appeared at the bottom of the eclipse of the corona, and it lasted almost 5 minutes. And then for these 4.5 minutes, we paid dearly, because I told you that it took me an hour to get there for a reason. I told you that for a reason. We drove this 87 miles back to St. Louis on I-55 for 6.5 hours.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was bumper to bumper. We drove with 10 miles an hour. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And thank God Jamie twisted my arm to load up on gas before we got going, because we would have ran out of gas. I have some kind of a physiological anomaly, or maybe I just haven't like an elephant bladder, because I can go forever without going to the bathroom. I could have gone this like 10 hours all the way to Lawrence without going once to the bathroom. But Neo and Jamie were dying there. So we had to stop twice in the midst of this traffic at a gas station, and imagine how much they had to wait at that gas station, because we guesstimated over 1 million people driving on that stretch of highway.
Drinking Bush? No, Budweiser. Or Bud White, right?
Yes, yeah, of course. But yeah, I think everyone should experience totality at least once. We've become kind of junkies with Neo about it. We are already planning the next totality, which is going to be in Iceland.
Oh,
so,
wow.
We're planning a trip to Iceland. Of course, the problem with Iceland, it's 290 days a year, it's cloudy.
Right.
So what are the odds? I mean, but you know what's interesting? The total eclipse will be again in the spring, and it will be at a time where there's no night in Iceland. So that would be the only 4 minutes of night that they'll get, and there's a possibility for polar aurora borealis during the solar eclipse. Can you imagine that? Yeah. So, yeah, craziness.
Yeah, so here, when we were underneath the 90% coverage or whatever, I don't know that we even could have seen the coronal ejection, because I definitely didn't see it. But I also wasn't staring like the entire 4 minutes of like what was supposed to be our 90%
now,
coverage.
We didn't take you with us on purpose, Louis, because we were told that taking you there would be ill-advised, because basically every time you are outside, there's a total eclipse of the sun.
Damn right.
You
Damn
eclipse
right.
even the sun, sir. Total eclipse of the heart, too.
Thank you. That's very cool. No, I had wanted, so I have two brothers that are twins, and I am not the third. I have 4 siblings, 2 of which are twins, and their birthday was April the 8th, the day of the eclipse. So I had wanted to see if I could pull everybody to St. Louis and like just meet up and
Well, they're in Memphis, your brothers.
Yes, yes.
So you should have met them halfway in Cape Girardeau.
That's what I wanted to do. Cape Girardeau or even Sykeston, Missouri would have been an option to meet up, but I had to work, so I had basically could get away long enough to like look at the sun, and that was basically it. So, but yeah, how about you, Fernando? Did you watch?
You know, like I know it's a very fascinating thing. I saw other ones, but that day I took a vacation, and I mean I should have made at least a plan. And back in the day, we had shit tons of glasses and stuff. I say, okay, I know it's happening. I know it's beautiful. I know it's a lot of contemplation, but I didn't prep myself to watch it all, so I ignore. Luckily, there was some neighbors that were like, those middle-class lady having wine, and they're already kind of shit-faced on the Eclipse. They said, no, you gotta look, and they share the glass. And so luckily, I'm glad that they bump into me.
Good deal.
And hopefully they don't follow the podcast. But anyway, it was great
Good deal.
to enjoy, and it's such a fascinating thing what the moon really is. And more like I read, it's just crazy, like what the effect, like about the tides, like what happened, how the moon was formed.
Right.
It's just like it show how small we are. It's just a thing like that. As more you think or read, always like the contemplation about the universe.
Yes.
And we still know nothing.
Yeah.
Like the moon by itself. If you see how much time scientists really explore the moon by itself, it's a fraction. Like all those expeditions, like they really didn't spend a whole day on the moon if you put all the hours together, every that you're aware of, counting the
all the trips to the moon put together
like,
is
who stepped into the moon was
something.
like we have China, Russia, and the U.S., or just U.S. and Russia?
Just the United States have sent people on the moon. Nobody else has sent
Oh, really?
people on the moon.
I thought there was no. Okay.
There's one coming up, I believe. It's either
Yeah,
India or
hopefully.
China. I
Yeah.
can't-
The Russians have sent rovers. Lunokhod is
Yeah,
called
yeah.
their rover. Chinese have not sent people. We are the only ones that have sent people on the moon, and I think combined, all of the time spent on the moon is like just a few hours.
Right, and I mean, and it's such a it's very interesting. It sounds like they constantly have earthquakes, like
Yeah.
all those of the reverse
Moonquakes.
effect. Moonquakes.
There's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
moonquakes and they're not seismic. They have no tectonic plates.
Because
They're
they're
caused by
single.
the Earth.
They're single plate,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just a single.
Single
apparently.
plate, yes, that's right. They have one plate.
Yeah.
They have no tectonic moving plates on the moon, but the moon quakes and the moon apparently shakes constantly, very often, and it has to do with the Earth's gravity pulling on the moon.
Yeah, it's like the tide,
Yeah.
but it's the reverse. It's almost like a reverb of the gravitation effect on each
Yeah.
other, right?
Yeah, and the moon is part of the Earth, really.
Yeah.
It was a massive collision at the beginning of the solar system that caused the moon to secede. But what's interesting is if the moon disappears, have you guys thought of what's going to happen if the moon disappears suddenly? If it's gone, like we wake up tomorrow and there's no moon.
The ocean gonna die very fast.
Yes, a lot of the life, organic life in the ocean will die because the tides are essential about circulation of vast mass of microorganisms, and it will get really smelly and really dirty real quick.
Temperature
Things will
will-
die, but also apparently there's an ocean underneath the ocean, and it's bigger than all the oceans in the world. So underneath our oceans there's another like subterranean ocean, and it's apparently it's responsible for the existence of all water, all salt water. It seeps through the mantle of the earth into the water, and that thing's gonna get affected, and it will apparently affect the magnetic field of the earth.
That's that too.
And
Like,
that's
I mean,
gonna
still-
mess us up
It's in-
because that's protecting life on Earth.
It's in
from
theory, but
radiation.
most
Yeah.
likely will happen. Like looking all the physics and the studies behind. That's a big case. Like
Yeah. We will.
that would be interesting if it happened for you see if the theory.
Yeah, life will be extinguished. So it's so interesting that the existence of this body, heavenly body, basically kind of accidental existence of it at the exact right distance from Earth is responsible for us, existing, and it's pretty amazing.
It's amazing.
Also, how amazing it is that the moon is at this distance from the Earth that allows it to be the exact same size as observed from Earth as the sun and block it that way. I mean,
That
it's
is
just
such a weird, it almost can't be
Coincidence.
coincidental, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an incredible coincidence. Absolutely. And also, if the moon disappears, you know who's going to be fucked up? Werewolves.
The werewolves.
Werewolves will be in fucking hell.
Poor werewolves. What are we going to do? So, guys, we just were joined by my very good friend and fellow attorney, Mr. Greg. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How's it going?
Greg Esquire. We love Greg. Yeah.
So, Greg, I just got to tell you this because I drove the kids here, and I need to introduce you to Marshall. Marshall is Cassidy's future husband. That is how I was told I need to introduce Marshall on the podcast. And Cassidy, in particular, wanted you to meet Marshall because you guys look like you could be family.
She's like 2 and I look exactly like you.
And
Wearing
Greg,
the same color shirt.
Yeah, it must be genetic.
yeah, and Greg is their future divorce lawyer.
So, Mr. Gietzen, how you doing? I feel like it's been a long time since I've talked to you. What's new in your world?
It's new in my world. Honestly, not much. Margaret is at CERN doing slamming particles together in the biggest particle accelerator in the world. Or at least she's collecting data and sifting through it. I had no idea how much data they actually create at the CERN particle accelerator. It's like on the scales of Google in terms of the amount of information. So it's honestly more of a game of sifting through how much information they have rather than having, it's too much information rather than too little. So pretty cool.
How long has Margaret not been around to supervise you?
About 2 weeks.
So you're already getting into some shit.
Yeah.
I'm here, aren't I?
Slamming particles together is how Melania refers to sex with Trump. Margaret is Margaret is amazing. CERN is incredible. What an incredible place. I have a former soccer player that I coached through high school, Eilish Gibson, who worked there for quite a while, and she graduated nuclear physics and went and worked there. And I have a friend of my father who actually worked in building CERN. He was a physicist too, and he worked in actually the constructing of the particle accelerator, and that is such an incredible place. Obviously, the Higgs boson particle, and they're discovering more and more and more amazing stuff.
The discoverer of Higgs actually died about 2 days ago, I think.
Really? They said it was not viable?
Yeah, Margaret sent me a text saying that he had passed recently.
Bummer.
Yeah. Not very happy. Did you get a chance to watch the eclipse?
I could have, but I didn't. We saw it in 2017, I think, in the law school, and I was like, yeah, I've seen them all. Wow. All right, I don't even know how to respond to that, so I'm just going to go to you, Lauran. Did you get to watch the eclipse?
No.
No.
Because like Julian, I didn't know what time it was, and I was literally just sitting in the Mustang waiting for Anthony to get done with a job interview. So also, his windows are blacked out, almost. So the window was only slightly cracked, and I could not see anything. Also, I think I kind of agree with your mom, Julian, about negative energies, because on Monday, coincidentally, my neighbor decided to be a dick again after a month. So I'm not surprised.
All right. So what about you, Cassidy? Did you watch the eclipse?
I did. It was extremely disappointing. I left school for it, And I made fun of my best friend Evan because he went to St. Louis, and I thought that it was going to be outside the line and he was going to get a worse view. But he got the best view of my whole entire friend group. But yeah, I watched it outside. I walked to a park, and it was awful. Worst viewing experience ever.
Wow.
2017 did it so much better.
I made fun of Evan as well.
Yeah.
How about you, Marshall? Did you watch?
Yeah, I watched it. Like the
Closer.
school had a.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
There you go. Perfect.
I watched it. The school had like it was like kind of like a drill, evacuation drill. That's how they use it to, like, you know, get us out. And then once we were out there, we just kind of like sat on the field, and it was really boring.
Gotcha.
I liked talking to people though. That was nice. But then the eclipse itself was just like, oh, there's a thing in front of the sun. Wowee.
Yeah.
Wow. These young whippersnappers. They
Yeah,
got no.
man. They're like,
wanted to see it. I forgot.
yeah.
All right, so I
Yeah.
think it's
They're like,
fair to say if you were above 40, you saw it. If you're below 40,
yeah.
you're a pathetic loser.
The kids were like,
Yeah.
if I want to get mooned, I'll go to the locker room.
Right.
You know? But I think Chris saw it. Didn't Chris see it?
Did you see it, Chris? You were who I was talking to that saw it in the trees, right? Yeah. So, like, I didn't know anything about that. That you could, like, just watch through the trees, or like a colander will make a pinhole camera.
Camera obscura.
I didn't see that. So, were you able to actually see the moon, like, cover across?
Really, we had the glasses that were really dark, but you could see the shadows on the ground disappear. And then all the birds went kind of crazy. We had ducks and geese and everything flying right at 2 o'clock. It flew for about 5 minutes, and then it got real calm again. So
Nice. I didn't introduce Chris when we started because he is Evo's brother-in-law and my very good friend, and he's just sitting here joining us and listening to us make fools of ourselves. But he did share with me that he had watched that Eclipse, so I just wanted to toss it out to you. All right. So that's it. Like, I was actually pretty confident that most of the younger folks would not have seen the Eclipse. That's actually not a surprise to me. So I saw it when I was 7 years old, and it didn't register to me as a big deal. But I have been waiting for another totality to witness, like, ever since then. So, yeah, this actually didn't surprise me at all. So that's why I asked all the old folks first. So, all right. So next question. This is a philosophy question, and I avoid philosophy questions because I tend to get, like, way too animated about them. But this was an interesting question to me. Do you believe in fate, or do you believe in free will, or maybe both? So, any volunteers? Lauran.
I believe in fate to a degree, but I also believe that sometimes, like, I believe fate and free will kind of exist side by side, because I think fate has tried to do things in my life, and somehow free will fucked it up. Mm-hmm. Like, I found out I found out around the same time that my husband and I started dating. We were discussing, like, everything about ourselves, and we were learning about each other. And I found out he used to work at the Sprouts across from my high school while I was going there, and he used to park right next to me. But we never met each other.
Right.
And, like, and then he kept talking about all these weird coincidences where we were at the same events. We were, like, doing things, like, almost right next to each other.
Right.
And we never met each other until all of a sudden I downloaded a dating app for the third time after deleting it twice. Because I'd given up on men, basically. And
I don't blame you. Men suck.
Yep.
no, I'd given up on anybody. I was done.
So, Julie, you had a thought.
I think fate, like, we're supposed to do something, but we have the choice on how to do it, kinda.
Uh-huh.
So it's like we're meant to end up somewhere, do something big, but there's nothing making us do it in a certain way.
Gotcha. So what do you think you are fated to do?
Good deeds.
Nice. That was completely not what I was expecting you to say. I was expecting something way more smart alecky, but I like that for an answer. All right. Nate, how about you?
I believe strongly in free will and kind of believe that people who are into fate like to tell themselves the story that something's predestined to happen. And I guess I should just clarify that is what you meant by fate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like life is determined.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Uh-huh.
No. I've had too many fun, crazy, terrible things for it to have just been fate.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go to my fellow philosophy graduate next.
Offset by being a lawyer, though.
Right. Mr. Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I won't waste too much time because I'm pretty sure we discussed this and
We
we
did.
have the
We
same
did.
exact
Yeah,
opinions on it. I mean, first off, I think there's an interesting kind of religious aspect to something like this, which is, predetermination in a religious context it has an entire different set of moral implications. I know I was raised part Catholic, part Presbyterian, and Presbyterians are Calvinists, Catholic. Catholics are not. So I thought that's what I was thinking. That's something we didn't talk about when we first discussed this. Overall, I think that I more or less agree with Sam Harris's position on this, which is, to a very real extent, everything that happens even inside your brain is, to some extent, with some maybe very, very minor changes, determined in that it's all kind of a system that is set up, you hit go and it goes. But from a practical perspective, there is absolutely no conceivable way that we could have enough information, probably ever, to be able to get to that level to where we would know for a fact that, it's determined and this is what that person will do, this is what that person will do. It's for all intents and purposes impossible forever. Mm-hmm. So to that extent, I think that, does fate exist if we want to look at it as just kind of a predetermination based on a system that's set up and just goes? Yeah, probably. But for all practical intents and purposes, no. Believing that accomplishes nothing.
So you have said at least a couple of times when you were talking about that, like for all practical purposes.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean when you say for all practical purposes?
What I'm saying is the ultimate answer, I think, for me is yes. It's predetermined. I think it is at the foundational level a system that's set up and it goes. Mm-hmm. Again, maybe some minor, physics things pop in there and say, uncertainty. Maybe it's there, but that doesn't really affect things at a macro level. So that is kind of my thoughts on it. So the answer is yes, in terms of from a very strictly philosophical perspective. Mm-hmm. Is it predetermined? Yes, but with the huge caveat of, if it is predetermined, nobody's ever going to be able to look inside the box and determine it. So if nobody can determine it, then what's the point in thinking of it as being
predetermined?
Yeah.
I'll get behind that. Okay, so now I've talked to a lawyer / attorney, or a philosopher / attorney, and I'm going to talk to a smart person. Evo, what do you think?
No, seriously. That's the oldest, it's an ancient dilemma, right? It's determinism versus free will. And it is believed, and I believe that as well, that free will is just an illusion. Mm-hmm. And even when you conceive of an idea and it comes from a neural network in your brain, right? But it is also based on an entire other system of events that took place before that. In fact, if like right now, Greg has chosen to have this jacuzzi of beer, and he could have gone with rum and coke, or but he decided, he made a choice, right? He made a choice at the bar. He thought about it probably and said, I'm going to get that jacuzzi. And so he's holding that beer, and it might appear on the surface that this was a product of free will. This choice is a product of free will. And maybe every human being is just this nursery of completely independent choices. But that's not the case. That choice was based on another event. It's a function of another event that took place beforehand. If you think about it, if you unravel it a little bit, unpack it, you will find that that's the case. And then the previous choice that influenced this choice is based on another choice. And if you start walking backwards, you will go back to when he was a baby, when Greg was not, and maybe before he was even born, and choices that his parents made that probably involved a bottle of Merlot, and choices that happened before them and before them and before them. And if you keep going backwards, you will go, according to physicists, to theoretical physicists, you will go back 13 billion years for that choice to happen, for that beer to be chosen. You can go back 13 billion years to the Big Bang when the universe was created. And everything, according to this theory of determinism, was predetermined at that moment of the Big Bang, including us here and the words that I speak and the choices we make right now. Everything was determined already. And that was the case for the longest time until the 20th century. Physicists themselves, philosophers, they agreed kind of uniformly that everything was determined. And then quantum mechanics showed up. And when the theory of quantum mechanics emerged, then we had a bit of a problem, because quantum mechanics doesn't behave like classical physics, as you guys know. And in quantum mechanics, if you have a state of things and you apply action to those state of things, in normal physics, you will have an outcome that's influenced by this event, right? And it will be one outcome, and it will be predictable. In quantum mechanics, you have two outcomes, outcome 1 and outcome 2, and they appear 50% of the time, but they're completely unpredictable. They just happen, and you don't know if it's going to be outcome 1 or outcome 2. And Einstein, he had this theory. He said that there's another reality that exists underneath this layer that determines which outcome will happen, 1 or 2. And so, because he believed in determinism, Einstein is a determinist. So he believed in this, that there is something else that we still don't have access to, another reality that decides which outcome is going to happen. But people like Heisenberg believed that this was the bottom layer. Quantum mechanics is the bottom layer, and things just freaking happen.
Right.
You know, and so Heisenberg called himself probabilitist. You know, it's just that there's a probability of 1 or 2 things happen, and there's nothing else underneath it. So, really, the free will, as it is just a projection of other things that happened beforehand. And to me, even though it seems like we decide things in our lives, it's really all of our choices are influenced by something else. The movie Inception was great, because remember how they tried to dig deep into finding an original idea, an original thought, and they couldn't do it. They had to go in people's subconscious while they were asleep, and then go within this sleep in another one to find the philosopher's stone, the ultimate goal, the original idea that spawned out of nothing. And it's a beautiful concept, but we haven't proven that it exists.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on
No, so it's fantastic, because I don't know that between what you said and what Greg said, like, my position could be summed up any better. So, like, that's perfect for me. Now I'm going to talk to somebody that's really, really smart, Julian.
Thank you. But Ivo, what you were first talking about reminded me of this like like rationalization for how time works, and it's like, so the universe and every second, every moment, everything is just a painting by a child, right? Just some kid. He's painting, and he stacks his paintings every moment. He stacks up and up and up and up, and the current painting that he has is what's going on right now. But we don't know where we're at in that stack of paintings ever. Like, we could be in the middle of it, we could be at the very end of it, we could be at the very start of it. So,
yeah, that's a good analogy.
It
He's so smart.
Makes my head hurt, so I don't want to talk about that no more. Cassidy, what are your thoughts?
I don't know.
Do you think things are like predetermined, or do you think they just happen and you have control over things that happen?
I believe in fate mostly.
Really?
Yeah.
So, what do you think your fate is destined you to be?
I don't know. I don't know it yet.
Gotcha.
Oh, yes, it's to end up with my amazing boyfriend, Marshal. But also, I don't know. You don't know your fate until it happens.
I agree.
And you have free will in the sense that you don't have free will. You have the thought of free will. And that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, combining what this guy said and that guy said, like, I don't believe that free will exists, but I believe that the way that we conceive of the world, because we conceive of the world in a cause-effect relationship, it is the only way that we can understand that we have a position in the universe. And so we design our lives, our morality, our sociality, all on the notion that, like, these are choices that we make. And it's necessary to who we are, but I don't think that it functionally exists. That's why I was pushing you on for what you meant when you said for all practical purposes, because I think in a very, very practical sense, we have to act as though we have free will.
Well, and I don't mean to jump back in
go
here,
ahead.
but I mean, one of the things, this is one of those questions that, a lot of times philosophers get shit for sitting in an armchair, and it's like, well, who really gives a shit, right? I mean, whether it's predetermined or whether it's free will, I'm going to eat this burger, I'm going to drink this moat of beer. What do you call it?
Jacuzzi of beer.
I'm going to do it, and I don't really care why I'm doing it or whether it's predetermined, but it has very serious impacts. I mean, on, like you say, on a society.
Yeah.
I mean, our entire system of justice is based on the conception that we do have choices, that people make choices, and if they make bad choices, that there will be some kind of retribution from the state, for example, or that there will be other consequences depending on the circumstances. Whereas if if somebody's truly a determinist, punishment doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Doesn't make sense at all. Yeah.
And there are some determinists who basically say, well, it still makes sense because it still leads to the outcome, and we don't have a choice in it because we're animals and that's the way we feel about it. But I just think this is one of those philosophical questions that kind of looks ethereal but really has practical applications.
Gotcha. Lauran, you had a thought?
It kind of ties back to what he was talking about, like, kind of religiously, and it's just the idea that predetermination or fate is, like, kind of, like, comforting in a way for a lot of people. And, like, this can be seen, like, especially in, like, the reading community. Like, the fated mates trope is, like, a big thing right now, and, like fated partners and stuff like that, and, like, that has been such a big thing in reading recently. It's one of my favorite tropes for sure, just because, like, I feel like I was fated to meet my husband, because, like, there were too many times we were in the same room at the same time, same place, and, like, but, like, somehow, like, I don't know, it happened too many times for it to be a coincidence, in my opinion.
But the important question, are you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
I hate Twilight. Twilight can get fucked. It's a terrible series. Bella is the most boring female main character in existence.
Gotcha. All right, so I interrupted you. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No, it's just a whole thing, and I just think it's interesting seeing the idea of fate being reflected in just what people enjoy in reading, especially. And again, like, I'm a person who currently has over 700 books in her TBR and will probably never get around to reading all of them.
Right.
But
I feel like sometimes just
my
the
high
collection.
heart rate monitor just went off.
Oh, gotcha. I feel like sometimes the collection of the books is more fun than actually reading them sometimes.
No, it's two different pleasures between actually reading a book and buying a book, and that is what my husband does not understand.
Right.
And also, by the way, some book math for everyone out there. If it's from the same series, it counts as one book. Also, if it's by the same author, it also only counts as one book.
Just one book.
If that one book costs $300, that's inflation, and I can't do anything about that.
Right. Julie, you had a thought?
Okay. It's gonna sound a little bit stupid, but just listen, okay? So there's this show about a blue jay and a raccoon, right? And their
Regular show, yes.
their boss is like a gumball machine, and
It's a good show.
they work at a park. What do they do at the park? Do they just
They work there. They're kind of like cleanup crew, or like they set stuff up. Like, also, why it's funny, my husband and I, one of the first things we ever bonded over, and we actually have a plan to name one of our boys Rigby.
right? But in this
So we have that.
in the show about a blue jay and a raccoon, their boss can give them pretty simple stuff like, and their names are Mordecai and Rigby, right?
Rigby's
Their
the raccoon.
their
which is the
boss
one
their
he
boss
is.
can be like, Mordecai Rigby, go clean up the park. Mordecai Rigby, go get me a coffee. And they will go from like trying to drive around town to go get a coffee to like
summoning Satan. It's
or-
like
like restarting the universe. And I think that's like kind of what I think. Like they're given pretty simple instructions, but they're
go get me a whole wheat donut somehow ends up in a sugar dimension.
yeah, like it's not. They're not fated to do that, but they're fated to get the whatever they're trying to do. They're just not taking the path, you know.
Gotcha.
But on a more, I think it's interesting that you chose that as an example because at a more meta level, they are absolutely fated to do that. It's written by a person.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
And also, Pops was fated to save the universe. In case you forgot that.
All right. I think I have not heard from Marshall. Marshall, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm definitely a determinist. Oh. Sorry.
I know it
okay.
takes a little getting used to, so no worries.
Yeah, I'm new here. Okay, I'm definitely a determinist. I do think that everything is just based on like some previous like happening just resolving to cause the next thing to occur. And sorry, I'm struggling thinking here. Yeah, I just don't really think it's kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. Like
Gotcha.
if I would, there's no way to like act like a determinist. Like you can't do that. It's you can think it, but then you're still making choices every day, unless you just decided to not make any choice. But that in itself is also a choice.
Gotcha. Yep. I agree. I 100% agree. Mr. Lafort, have we talked to you about this yet?
I know, but I mean, I pass. I think we had enough. Like I'm more like kind of free will, but just don't have much to add.
Gotcha. Mr. Chris, you got anything you want to add to this crazy conversation?
Everyone has free will, and it usually works out as good. I went in for surgery, and they were going to clear up everything, and I felt real confident. When I woke up, I just went, wow, and I like to say.
Good points, I think, from everybody. Awesome. All right, let's move on. Okay, this will probably be the final question because I know Evo's got to leave in like 5
no,
minutes.
I don't.
No
trivia.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, so then I'm going to go to the most important question for me, which is, did anybody besides me watch Wrestlemania? First of all, show of hands, how many wrestling fans are there? All right, I got pro wrestling.
So
Yes,
we
okay.
have
I got 4. We got 4 people. All right. So did everybody here that's a wrestling fan watch Wrestlemania?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I wanna
I've
hit
gone
you.
to WrestleMania.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I would love to go to
Emil was a big
WrestleMania.
fan when he was a kid, and we went to Topeka a couple times to Kansas City to watch WrestleMania.
Dude.
My husband met Big Show.
Rey Mysterio.
Oh,
was
yeah.
at his peak.
Oh, Riggs.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Yeah.
My lucha boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jules, what are you thinking?
I like wrestling for like the sillier side, where it's like some guy who painted his arm like a cobra and then like jumps at people with it. I think that's so funny, but like I don't really take it seriously.
So I don't know that
If
you
you're
can
taking-
take it seriously. Like
You're
it's
taking
it's
it
a
seriously.
show.
You're watching wrestling wrong.
Right.
No, I don't like think of it that heavy. I just think it's like funny sometimes, you know.
Gotcha.
I'm not like a true fan.
Gotcha. That's fair. Like I can get behind that. So when I was a kid, like the one thing that my dad and I would do together is watch wrestling on like Sunday afternoon. So like for as long as I've had functional memories, like wrestling has kind of always played a part in it. So I'm super familiar with the story, super familiar with like the mythology behind it, and like, you know, the whole point of kayfabe and all that other stuff. Like, it's just always been a part of my life. And so I've been watching it and watching it. And I feel like I might have even brought it up on the podcast recently, that like when the bad news about Vince McMahon came out, that I like had this crisis of like,
The least surprising thing ever.
yeah, I know, right? It's
After what he did to Trish Stratus in like front of everybody,
Yeah.
in front of his wife, no.
Yeah, it's almost obvious, like in hindsight, but it was easy to kind of like, if it's not put directly in front of you, to put it out of your mind. And so I had to kind of stop watching for a while, and I tuned back in to prepare for Wrestlemania, and like I really, really enjoyed the storyline, and I feel like it's okay to talk about the storyline in pro wrestling, because it is a reality show, and so.
Except way more fun.
I think it is. I think it's way better than any of the Real Housewives or, you know, any of that other stuff.
90 Day Fiancé is still the best, though.
Well, okay, but I don't know. I've seen this show recently called Traitors. We'll talk after the podcast. Yeah.
Y'all are
Traitors
neglecting
is
My
actually
Strange
amazing.
Addiction.
I love that show.
That one's like almost more of a game show than a reality
It really
show.
kind of
That
is.
one also,
Yeah.
Alan Cumming can do no wrong.
So the American version, though, is the worst of the three. Like, definitely check out the English or the Australian version. Sorry, I've said too much already. Anyway.
Like I said, I watch it because Alan Cumming can do no wrong.
Right.
That man is a national treasure.
So I like this direction of the story, that all of the stories in pro wrestling have been on for the last 2 to 3 years, and it was actually interesting to know a little bit of the behind the scenes, to know about the fighting that was going on between Vince McMahon and Triple H, Paul Levesque. Paul Levesque is
Stephanie's
the chief
husband.
talent officer. He's the guy that's supposed to be writing the shows, but Vince McMahon, who until a few months ago owned everything, would literally walk in at the beginning of each show and just throw out the pre-scripted results and say, we're going to do this instead. And so Vince has been like slowly moving away from control of the company, and so he got completely booted out. And now we're starting to see like what Paul Levesque can do running the whole show. And it was just this fantastic, like, good guy wins in the end. Like, Cody Rhodes is now, I mean, okay, fine, he beat my tribal chief, Roman Reigns, to
Thank
become
you for
the
saying
world
my and not
champion. He
our.
is your tribal chief
No,
as well.
he is not.
He is the island of relevance, and
No.
we just live on it. So
I'm
anyway,
good.
like they did these things in the show where they scripted Roman Reigns to be the world champion for 4 years. It's something that pro wrestling hasn't done since the 50s or 60s, right? And they developed this insane story where Roman Reigns was this unstoppable force. I'm sorry, the bloodline.
really.
The bloodline was
Gotta
this
say, like,
unstoppable force.
You're giving
in
a
wrestling.
lot of credit to a man who cheated his way into out of every
Scripted.
single
Hello.
one.
Scripted.
I know, but still. Still cheated.
So yeah, it was just. I think they did a fantastic job, and after watching that show, I'm super curious to see what the storytelling is going to be like in the future. And that's really kind of all. I just was curious. Like, what did you think, Chris? Like, you are an actual wrestling
Wrestler,
coach,
yeah.
and you can see like what's going on in pro wrestling, and it's completely okay if you hated it and thought it was dumb. I'm just telling you where I was. So
I like watching it.
yeah.
I think your questions are kind of choreographed. The wrestlers would show up with free will, and then Vince McMahon would lay the fate down. So,
That's a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Heisenberg was a heel.
If you knew anything about him, he kind of was.
yeah. Lauran, what about you?
My husband and I have been watching wrestling together pretty much since we got together. I did not grow up watching it. I knew of it. I learned like day of when we started watching Wrestlemania that apparently my parents watched it together as well.
Wow.
But like they stopped watching it long before I came along.
To be honest,
So I don't know what happened there.
No, most people do. I'm the weirdo. So, yeah.
No, I'm never stopping this. This is how we bond.
Gotcha.
Essentially, is watching it together. And The first WrestleMania I'd ever seen was last year, which was probably so disappointing for a first WrestleMania. Because the whole second day just sucked. Everything about it sucked. And it hurt. Because the first day was actually really good.
Right.
It had a lot of really good fights. Rhea getting her title. Rhea Ripley being probably, like, I know this is subjective, probably the hottest female wrestler in all of WWE at the time. As of right now. The woman is gorgeous.
Yeah, Jade Cargill wasn't there yet, so yeah. I'd
No.
agree.
They're
Her
all
and Jade Cargill, like, they're really close.
They're all stunning.
Yeah.
They're both gorgeous, gorgeous women, and they also could both kill you if they wanted to. And it, but that is part of it.
Right.
But this time it was so much fun watching both days. Like I was
Both
never
days were
both days
fantastic.
were perfect.
Uh-huh.
Bailey becoming a face again,
Yeah.
and like completely turning back from heel, and oh my god, her entrance though,
Yeah.
girl, I'm jealous. The hair got me excited for future things to do to mine. It's great.
Good deal. Good deal.
I'm doing those colors soon, but like
Nice,
at some point. But oh my god, I think like there were technically 2 fights that I was kind of disappointed by. And one of them was because of outcome, and the other one just because it kind of felt like a throwaway match, which was Rhea versus Becky, because Becky was sick, and it also kind of felt like, because we know Seth is probably going to have back surgery soon. It was just kind of a way for Becky to promote her book and like kind of disappear for a bit
Right.
to take care of Seth and her daughter for a while Seth is recovering.
So what she's talking about right now is this tendency. So back in the day when I was a kid, wrestling, kayfabe was a thing. Kayfabe is essentially like wrestlers pretending that the storyline that's written for them is real life. And so as a wrestler, you could not break kayfabe. So even though Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik might be driving to the event together, in public, they can't act like they are anything but the most hated of opponents for each other. And so kayfabe was essentially how the business propagated itself until, quite literally, Triple H broke kayfabe. Like, there was this big to-do where, like, some guys from WWF at the time went over to WCW, and Triple H, the now guy that's running WWE, and his buddy, they went and like hugged these guys that were leaving, like publicly, and like broke kayfabe. And ever since then, I'll take a step back. So kayfabe has a bunch of like jargon terms. So they called me a mark back in the day, because we would watch wrestling and we thought it was real. So we're marks. Well, now they have to actually integrate these real life stories. Like, Seth has hurt his back. His wife Becky is also a wrestler. They have a little kid.
Their daughter Rue, who's adorable, by the way.
They need to write into the story some way that Seth and Becky are going to be gone. So now, instead of calling us marks for following wrestling, they call us smart marks or smarks, because we have enough knowledge of like the actual like real story that's going on to understand how it's being integrated into what you're seeing on TV. And so there's all these different levels and just different ways that the storytelling within wrestling changes over time. And I am, and again, I kind of feel bad, Chris, because you're an actual wrestler. You're not a pro wrestler. You're a wrestling coach, and so like I'm focusing on just the story. And these guys are super athletic, but that is. For me, like, I've always been more interested in the smack talk that goes on in between the matches.
No, Perk era John Cena was insane.
Right. And quite honestly, The Rock may be the best smack talker of all. Well, no, there was Roddy Piper. Like, there's probably nobody better. So, anyway, I go on too much. All right. One more quick question. I'm just going to take a quick poll of the audience here. What's your web browser of choice? I listed Chrome, Edge, Safari, and Opera, and I know there's like 10 to... Oh, Julian, did you have a comment about the wrestling stuff you wanted to get into?
I'm not a big wrestling fan, but John Cena is the GOAT. You cannot argue with me on that.
I
No
can
one is.
argue
I'll
with
beat
you.
Nobody
you. I'll
is.
beat you.
I believe
I will
that your
smack
tribal
you.
champion has beat John Cena a couple
Comparing,
times.
I will beat you with a
No.
hanger.
that is like comparing Kraft mac and cheese to homemade mac and cheese.
Right,
it is
right.
not the same thing. And Roman is Kraft in this scenario, by the way.
WWE is important. I think it's we underestimate we underestimate the impact of professional wrestling. So seriously, I mean, if you think about how representative it is of the American psyche and society, I've always followed it carefully and analytically because it's pure Americana. This doesn't exist anywhere else, guys. You probably, because you grew up with it, you don't understand. It's such an American thing, and it is like if American society,
New
imagine
Japan exists, though.
yeah, imagine American society was an entity, like a biological being, and like was able to look into a giant mirror. Well, lots of its features will resemble professional wrestling. Professional wrestling invented trash talking. Trash talking is such a purely American thing, and think about how much was appropriated by our previous president from professional wrestling.
It's
The trash talking,
insane,
he
yeah.
recognized intuitively, he realized that trash talking is beloved by a large portion of Americans. And largely the audience that watches professional wrestling religiously, they're also fans of the previous president. But he has taken samples of professional wrestling trash talking and incorporated them into his persona. It's a fake persona, we all know that. But it really appeals to a large portion of the population. And it's quite amazing how much of an impact professional wrestling has on American society. And maybe it's inconspicuous a little bit, you don't recognize it, but it's there. And how interesting it is, like the heels, have you thought about that? Like, who are the villains? Intellectuals are villains
Almost always.
in professional wrestling. Foreigners are heels. They're evil in professional wrestling.
I'm gonna jump
Other than
on.
Rey Mysterio.
No, I'm gonna jump on what you're saying
Yeah.
because not only are they heels, but they are specifically timed to coincide with what's going on in reality. Like immediately after 9/11, we saw this glut of Middle Eastern villains
Yes.
in pro wrestling.
Who's the 7-footer? Forgot his
what
name.
is
Didn't
Anyway.
we also have Vic McMahon saying the N-word on air
Yeah, but that's
But-
just Vince being
in
Yeah.
front of Booker T? of all people?
idiot.
But-
yeah.
But no, absolutely. And also another impact of professional wrestling, the circus, of course, the spectacle that it is. It's such an American thing, and it's not surprising that some of the professional wrestlers are among the best comedic actors in America right now. John Cena is a spectacular comedic actor. Bautista, who would have thought that this incredibly ugly David Bautista, incredibly guy with a bizarre head, he's hilarious and a great actor. The Rock is the #1 movie star for year after year after year, worth $1 billion. And it makes so much sense because it's mostly acting.
Right.
I know they're incredible athletes and are walking commercials for anabolic steroids and all that
Just
stuff.
The Rock right now,
and
honestly.
they perform amazing things on the ring, but they are mostly actors. That's the #1 thing. If you're not a good actor, you're not going to be a successful professional wrestler, and they're fantastic. All of them are fantastic actors. In fact, I'm surprised that some of them didn't also jump. Like, there's some incredible wrestlers, acting-wise, that didn't make a move to Hollywood.
The Miz is trying.
But those three are freaking incredible actors.
Right.
Incredible actors, and its impact on society is huge, and we have to acknowledge it and admit it. It's really there.
No,
So-
I think, and that's one of the things that, like, I wasn't even thinking about when I came up with the question, but, like, you're 100% correct. Not only does it impact society, but it impacts society by reflecting society back at itself.
Yeah.
And it's like everything from, like, the monomyth of the hero to, like you said, the notion that, like, it's going to take advantage of whatever the cultural zeitgeist is. Like, wrestling does it all, and it does it in what appears to be sort of this base, method of, like, I'm gonna have two big sweaty guys, like, slap each other and grunt a little bit. But I feel like it's so...
It's also one of the most homoerotic things imaginable. Like, it's weird because the audience is largely, like, homophobic.
Right.
And
It's so weird.
Yeah. Almost all of us here around the table would be heels in the universe
fuck yeah.
which I would embrace, other than Marshall. Marshall, were you born in America?
I was.
So your name, wrestling name would be U.S. Marshal. So you would be a
Oh
a
my
hero.
God,
You would
like-
be
Kind of like
you
Big
would be a
Boss.
hero.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Right. Hold on. Julian was first. Julian had his hand up first.
See, I think John Cena's the GOAT, not because of wrestling, but because he became an actor,
As
a
a
good
person.
one. He's granted like 4 times the like the high bar for like Make-A-Wish kids, and he like learned the hardest language just to help the whatever it's called,
The language of
WWE.
love. Cena, there are some people like Will Ferrell, Melissa McCarthy. When you look at them, you just start laughing. Cena is this for me. I just look at this ridiculous face and just burst laughing.
You
He's
saw
got
what
the
he did.
funniest
You
face.
saw what he did
The
at the
Peacemaker.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
That was so good.
That's great.
Yeah, that I watched a whole video of them, like, describing how they had to put his costume together, because he actually did have, like, a little
Like a dance belt.
like a little dance belt, and that the sign was actually connected to. But yeah, outside of that, he was
I kinda
butt-ass
figured.
naked. Yeah. So, all right, guys, we have. Oh, go ahead, Lauren. Sorry.
No, it was just funny because, like, it connects to the homoerotic and also what you said, because you almost directly quoted a Big E interview where he talked about, like, his dream match, and I forgot who it was against, but, like, he was talking about his dream match, and it was, like, this other big dude, and he literally said, while Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston are dying in the background listening to this interview, he just goes, "Big meaty men slapping meat." You said it, I was like, oh my God, he's quoting Big E right now.
Right. I was for sure channeling Big E.
You
And
had a fun final question, right?
Sorry.
Yeah. So, it was the Wrestlemania question. So yeah, it's. I'm glad that everybody. Oh, the final question.
The browser.
The browser, web
Oh,
browser.
yeah.
Yes. All right. So yeah, just tell me what browser you like and maybe why you like it or hate the others.
Yeah, I like Google Chrome because I like to make it really easy for anybody who gains access to my desktop to have all of my
of your
information.
stuff. That's a good idea. Mr. Fernando, probably the most technical person here.
Well, I use it's a combo Chrome, majority of stuff, and then between Firefox and Safari.
Gotcha.
Chrome is changed a little bit. We don't know what the future will be, but for now, that does the job. Microsoft, Edge. I don't use that crap for anything.
You
Would you?
use it to install Chrome on a new computer.
No, I don't. I keep offline installer because I refuse myself to use Edge for anything.
I am not surprised.
I use Safari.
And I mean, Opera I used in the past,
Uh-huh.
but I mean, we never know what it's gonna be. But I feel that Chrome is kind of having some hiccups, more lately than ever before. But I like the integration situation, and the only one that I keep fully integrated, it's Chrome and Safari with account that I log in any computer. And then you put a password add-on and
Right.
Well, I like that it helps if I have any remaining RAM left over.
exactly.
I promise
But-
you, I tried to walk away from Chrome because it's such a damn memory hog. But
Well, stop keeping the 300 windows open too.
hey, you let me run my web the way I want to run.
Or
my
if you use a M2, if you use a Apple computer can handle that. And I mean, after Netscape, those are the only choice. I feel bad Netscape is over.
Right. Yeah.
If anybody knows, raise your hand.
No. Oh yeah, I absolutely remember Netscape.
I remember
I remember that little spinning in that was on. Oh, it was the shit back in the day. All right, Marshall, what web browser do you use?
Well, I use LibreWolf, and this is a modified version of Firefox.
Right.
And what I'm looking for in like my software on my computer is just like open source stuff. I'm a really big
Gotcha.
fan of open source. I don't like when like you can't see into the code. It's always I think it's always a good thing when you can like look at the code of any software so that they aren't hiding anything malicious, or especially like most like people making open source like software like aren't gonna be like weird about your like data. They always like tell you what they're like sending. And so that's why I don't just use like Chrome or even Firefox. Even though Firefox is owned by Mozilla, it's like it still sends like a lot of data to Google. Like they get paid by Google to send user data.
Right.
And so that's why I don't use any of that. I'm just
So are you like a completely open source guy? Are you like Linux and all that?
Oh yeah,
Gotcha.
I use Debian.
Debian. Okay, gotcha.
And yeah, most of my stuff is open source. I did think about switching my like NVIDIA driver to use a open source thing, but the proprietary driver is just like so much better right now. The open source isn't good enough to, run things at optimal performance. right
Gotcha.
now.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. Like righteous. All right, you. What do you do? I'm pointing to Cassidy right now. What's your web browser of choice?
See, I declared a while ago that I was going to be anti-open source because of Marshall.
Because that's the way you start a relationship. By just taking the opposite position to everything your partner's interested in. Go ahead.
Exactly. So I only use proprietary software. Nothing I use, even though people do monkey type, that's open source, so I don't use it. Okay, when I want to test my typing speed, I will never use that software.
Just side note, you will never need to know what your typing speed is.
Yeah, they really overvalue that in school.
Knowing my typing speed.
Well, no, it's fun watching the number go higher when you type fast.
Well, sure, there is that.
Yeah.
I really
I
expected
still can't type
Cassidy's
correctly. We learned
answer
I can't
to
do
be,
it.
what is the internet? Or something, some smart ass
What is the
answer. I was shocked by a real answer.
So, yeah, I like Chrome. I like getting my data stolen.
Gotcha.
And taking up all my memory. I have 32 RAMs, or 32
32
gigabytes.
RAMs.
32 gigabytes for a reason.
She has actual mountain goats.
Yeah.
in her backyard.
How many sheep are on my computer?
400.
Mr. Julian, what is your web browser of choice?
Unlike you weaklings, I use Chrome, and I don't really care what it takes from me. Maybe just don't be a little geek who's like, oh no, my 6 megabytes. I have 5 tabs open. Just close some of them.
Julian's like, get a better computer.
No, my dad's is better than mine by probably quite a bit, but just close tabs.
I will close tabs when you clean your room.
I promise you, if you just have 4 open at a time, you'll be fine.
Right. Mr. Ivanov.
Man, I've used stupid Microsoft Bing in the past.
Bing, yes.
I used Brave. Brave is good. Brave is basically Chrome but with more privacy and ad blocking. And then they have this cool feature with the worst name. I don't know who the hell was their brand director, but it has a feature called Resource Sniffer, which sounds like some kind of pervert stealing underwear, but Resource Sniffer allows you, you go to a web page, and with one click, you can download videos, images, whatever, audio embedded into the web page. So you don't have to go into the code, and you just can download it. And then Maxton is another one that I've used. It's another really privacy-focused browser, which is shocking because it's really Chinese. So I don't know what they're stealing from, but yeah, Maxton and Brave are two that I recommend. Yeah, for OnlyFans.
Miss Lauran, what do you use?
I am a creature of habit. So in school, a lot of stuff I had to use for school was only really accessible through Google Chrome. And that kind of became just what I used, because also, like, I had all of my emails right there. I had access to Google Docs. I had access to, like, PowerPoint software and all this stuff, and it was all, like, right there. Also, I'm able to, like, personalize my Google home screen, which I like. So, I still use that pretty much almost exclusively, just because for me it's the easiest for me to access. 2, I like the background I picked, and 3, I'm just so used to it at this point. Also, I don't know how y'all have like 5 or like 10 or whatever different tabs open. If I have more than 2, my autism will like spaz the fuck out and will be like, no. Like I could have one tab open for music and another tab doing whatever I want otherwise. Anything more than that, and I will absolutely go ballistic, unless I absolutely have to. I think the maximum I can have open is 3, and that is only if I absolutely have to open another tab for something.
I have a 50-inch screen, so I have tabs that start over here and tabs that end up over here.
Let me guess, you never know where the music is coming from?
Always know where the music is, because my ADHD works a little bit different than yours. I remember that shit from 2 hours ago when I turned it on. So, and can tell you how many tabs that actually is. I got a question for Marshall before I go to you, Julian.
To U.S. Marshal.
To U.S. Marshal, yes.
Your wrestling name on the show now.
Do you have problems with LibreWolf and sites that are optimized for Chrome? Do you like find yourself having to run like a virtual setup or something like that to get to those sites? Do you ever have that problem?
No, I don't have that problem. I feel like there's like some features that like kind of like break it. Like I think like one of them is like if you disable like JavaScript, like some like features that like block specific parts of websites if you want a little bit extra like privacy.
Right.
They just kind of like break the websites, but I don't ever turn those on. I don't really think they're necessary. I just use uBlock Origin.
Gotcha.
It's another open source ad blocker that you just add and it blocks most of the stuff.
U.S. Marshal would be a villain in the world of wrestling.
It's a heel. That's
Heel,
that's
for
the
sure.
wrestling term.
Yeah.
Face
You would
or
hack
heel.
the Jumbotron.
Yes. All right, Jules, what was your question?
It was more of a statement. It's like, so how my Chrome normally looks is I have like one YouTube tab most times, just for I want to watch something. And then sometimes if I'm playing a game that has something a little bit too heavy on me, I'll have like open on what to do, you know, how to solve a puzzle, whatever. And then other times I'll have like Amazon Prime open so I can watch a show before I return to watching YouTube or something.
Oh.
And then I just have one miscellaneous tab that I keep open like
My
most
brain
of the time.
hurts hearing
it's
you
like
explain this.
No, it's like one tab for any time I need to look literally anything up. I can just open it. Yeah.
Pull it
it's
open
like,
when you need it. Don't just
'cause
leave
it's
it
like,
there.
It's like, what if my friend's like, oh, by chance, what time is it in Switzerland? I can just look it up in my
What
random
friends
tab.
do you have?
Julian would be a heel too.
Julian, that one's obvious. Yeah. All right, Mr. Nate.
Unlike all of you unsafe people, I use a Tor browser on an AS400 from inside of a Faraday cage with an air gap because I don't want people knowing what underwear I buy. I'm just saying.
Tor has VPN, free VPN embedded.
Yes.
Yeah, Tor has a great VPN.
For me to put. Oh, sorry.
For me.
Yeah, I really like Tor. It's like
Yeah.
really good for like activists living in countries where like, you know, their government isn't very nice to them, so they can just connect to some like volunteer hosted thing in some, you know, nicer country where they will not get, you know, sent to jail or worse for just
And this comes from U.S. Marshal.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, that's freaking shocking.
So, Chris, Tor
Everyone just
is
needs
it's
a
actually an
VPN.
acronym. It stands
Tor
for the
has a
Onion
split screen,
Router,
too.
and the idea is, like everybody here could actually host their own Tor node, and then if you were being chased by
the government.
the government
Marshal.
as a U.S.
US
Marshal, then
Yeah, they're gonna
you
see my
could.
Goodreads and be like, "No, you're
They
banned."
can trace you on the internet. Is basically how it's supposed to work. But what about you? Do you have a preferred web browser?
I will tell you, I do not own a computer, so I'm very anti-computer.
How dare you? No, but you did back in the day because I built your webpage for you way back in the day.
I did that, but I'm not sure what Chrome is. I don't know what that stuff is.
And that's completely okay.
Computer and whatever
That's right. That's it. I don't blame you because otherwise you get into these dumbass conversations that we're having right now. So. Awesome. Okay, that was the last question that I had. So we've actually done quite a bit better than normal. Did you just yawn directly into the microphone? Like, directly. Like, no hesitation, no, like, moving your head to the side. You're just going to yawn in the microphone while I'm trying to shut stuff down. Wow. Just wow.
Yeah. What did we decide about determinism versus faith? Did we have a...
I don't think we really had a consensus. I think we
I'm
had
right, you're wrong.
as many people. We had 1, 2, 3, 3.5 maybe people say.
What about people who are unable to make a decision at all? Like inability to make a decision? There you go. Maybe we should be like unable to make the inability to make a decision leads to threesomes. So
Right.
we maybe we should go with that.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think we actually had a consensus, and I didn't expect to. I was just curious to know if we had folks that either believed free will or like definitively believed in fate. So yeah, so I thought it was a fun show. We are literally at 1:15, which is kind of the longest that we've gone in a long time. So I'm just going to start by saying thank you to everybody individually. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, Cassidy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you,
The
Eva.
pleasure was all yours.
Of course it was. Thank you, Lauran.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Chris. At this, wow. Did you just
feel alone?
You just took Cassidy's side in the end of the show.
That's it.
by
You're walking home.
yawning. Wow. Just wow. All right. Thank you, guys. This has been another episode of Wednesday Night Undressed. Woo!